Welcome to the Pareto Connection, where we broadcast programs of interest to leaders around the world who have made a commitment to operational excellence. You can find our broadcast schedule and enroll in any topic at www.pareto.com/events. Producing these programs reflects our commitment to the industry, and we also hope they will introduce us to opportunities to work with leaders like you. You'll find contact information and related offers at the end of this program. The program you've joined is titled Tool of the Month Club, the Fishbone and 5 Why Tools. Please note that this was a previously recorded event. We will start today with a brief overview of Pareto Performance Solutions, followed by our featured program. The next voice you will hear is from CEO of Pareto Performance Solutions, Mr. Ian Lazarus.
All right, well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Wherever you are in the world, I'd like to welcome you to our Tool of the Month program, which today will highlight the Fishbone and 5 Whys project management tools. My name is Ian Lazarus, President and CEO of Pareto Performance Solutions, and your host for today. At Pareto, we believe leaders have all the tools they need to excel in their mission, and today we'll be speaking specifically about one of these tools. We've demonstrated a 7-to-1 return on investment to our clients based on a 10-year backward-looking study, but returns are not limited to financial gains. We're very proud of the fact that we've supported 3 Baldrige Award-winning organizations, and in each case, the C-suite acknowledged they could not have achieved this prestigious recognition without our help. In a moment, I'll introduce our guest speaker, but first, some advice on how to get the most from this session. To provide you with the best audio experience, you can hear us, but we cannot hear you. But we actually do want to hear from you, so please direct your attention to the control panel on the GoToWebinar platform, which is the platform we use for these programs. The panel provides option for computer versus phone audio, a chat window, and a place to submit questions. Give us your questions there, and we will respond either within the control panel, or our speaker will answer them as part of the program. If we're moving too fast, or if you have other time-sensitive messages to us, send us a message through the chat window. You'll be sent a survey tomorrow that will allow you to give us feedback on today's program. The survey is only a few minutes long, a few questions. And among these questions is whether you would like to receive the free tool that we'll be offering today. If you're watching this program as a recording, today, you'll find instructions on how to request the tool at the end of the program. The Tool of the Month Club offers a new tool once per month over the course of the next year. Attend every program, get every tool, and we will issue you a certificate of completion. Miss a session and you can make up for it by enrolling in that session at the Pareto Connection site once it has been posted there. What you see here is a small sampling of the programs that are currently available. Programs on the Connection are available 24/7, so we can work around your schedule and help you to become the leader that you wish to be. And now, on to our featured program and to the introduction of our faculty. Darren Dolce-Mascolo is the president and co-founder of EMS Consulting Group, providing lean coaching, training, and facilitation for over 20 years. Darren has recently partnered with Pareto to serve as faculty for the Tool of the Month Club, and as a distributor of our Compass quality management system. Darren's expertise in lean deployment and methodologies makes him a particularly good fit for our program today. It gives me great pleasure to introduce to you Darren Dolce-Mascolo.
All right, well, thank you, Ian, and welcome again to everyone. Today's topic for the Tool of the Month Club is the Fishbone diagram and the 5 Why tool and concept. For the agenda for today, I want to start by talking about problem solving. I'm going to talk a little bit about the definition of a problem, as well as some basic problem solving processes and where the 5 Why tool and the Fishbone diagram fit into this process. It's very important to define your problem correctly and have a good process in place before jumping and using these tools. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Then what we'll do is cover the 5 Why process. I'm going to walk through 2 examples. First, we'll talk about what the 5 Why process is, how it works, and then we'll go through one example And then we'll go through another example using the compass template. Next, we'll cover fishbone diagram. And again, we're going to give you a good description of when to use the fishbone diagram, what it's for. We'll walk through it step by step, and we'll look at a couple of examples using the compass template. And then finally, I want to talk about, once you've completed a fishbone diagram, how can you then use it to go further in the problem solving process? And at the very end of the class, I will kind of recap and talk about the next steps in problem solving. Let's begin by talking about what a problem actually is. A good way to define what a problem is that it's a gap between the current condition and the target condition or standard. And the reason we want to do this is to ensure that we have a clear definition of what our problem is before we get into any kind of causal analysis. If we define the problem incorrectly, if we define it as a solution or even as a cause, then we're going to run into problems because we will not be able to truly define the root cause of the problem and ultimately come up with a solution. We'll be going down a rabbit hole, and that rabbit hole will not be the correct one. So it's very important to understand what a problem is. Now, for our problem-solving process, there are multiple ones, and we'll talk about two very popular problem-solving processes, but any good problem-solving process will aim to, once you've defined the problem, identify the primary causes or obstacles, if you want to call them that are preventing us from reaching that target condition, and then we will find the right countermeasures or actions to take to eliminate those causes and reach the target condition. Now, the fishbone diagram and the 5Y tool are both used for analyzing the causes at different points, and we'll talk about how we do that. So now let's talk about levels of problems first. And the reason I show you this is to understand that problems can be defined at multiple levels. At the top, we have things like strategic problems. As an organization, perhaps we haven't met our planned revenue dollars for the quarter or for the month, as an example. That is a strategic problem. Now, a fishbone diagram can be used on strategic problems. The 5Y probably not, because we're really not looking for a single root cause on that. Second level I have in the middle is more of a functional or departmental level problem. And that would be something like our output is not meeting our daily target, for example, our daily output plan or target. If that's the case, that is definitely a good problem to work on. We can use fishbone. Ultimately, later on, we might use 5Y once we dig a little bit deeper. And then finally, we have the front line kind of problem, or almost an instance of a problem, like a purchase component has a defect, for example, or a product fails test, or we have some sort of error that has occurred, like a medication error, for example. These can actually be very useful with the 5Ys, or I should say the 5Y process can be very, very useful with these types of problems to identify that single root cause. Now, let's talk about a couple of problem-solving processes themselves, problem-solving methodologies. The first one is A3 problem solving, or Toyota might call it Toyota business practices. And that starts with defining the problem, which we've talked a little bit about. The second step is investigation, trying to break the problem down and identify things like potential causes, issues surrounding the problem, and then ultimately getting to the root cause, which is step 3. The rest of the process is sort of aimed at solutions, implementation of these solutions, evaluating the impact of these solutions, and then monitoring, standardizing, spreading, and maybe adjusting as needed. But for today, our tools will focus on steps 2 and 3. Really, the fishbone diagram is going to be used very early on, in this process to identify the potential factors or causes. And the 5 why could be used at some point to identify a root cause for a single issue. Okay. Similarly, DMAIC, a very common process that we use routinely, begins again with definition of the problem, defining the customer requirements, the voice of the customer. But then we have measure, which is collecting data and facts. And then we have analyze. And these two, again, I have these in red because these are where we would use the tools that we're going to be focusing on today. Once we discover the critical or root causes of the problem, then again, we go into solution and follow-up, control, monitoring, etc. All right, so let's begin our tools discussion here with the 5 whys. 5 whys is one of the key tenets of the Toyota production system. It is a relatively simple process once you hear what it is, or you've heard of it already, and you might think 5 why is a very, very simple process, and that's true. And I encourage everyone to learn it and to practice it. But the issue with the 5 why is really the thought process and ensuring that you're really doing it correctly. And we're going to hit on some key points as we discuss this. What the 5 why process does is peels the onion. I have some pictures here of an onion because it's the idea that as we ask why, we're peeling those layers away and getting to the root cause, which is at the center. Now, how does the 5 why process work? We start by writing down our problem. Again, define the problem correctly, write that problem down, and then we ask why. Okay, we ask why the problem happens. We may not have that immediate answer right at that instant. We may need to go and see. We may need to go investigate a bit and find the answer and write it down below the problem. And it should be the immediate why to the problem. The next step is to then ask why again, okay, from step 1, and then write that answer down. May require some investigation, and then the immediate why after that. And we repeat that typically 5 times. Now, sometimes you will get to the root cause in fewer than 5 whys. Occasionally, it may actually be more, but we recommend going through 5 times, five whys. And it may be the case that earlier in the process, you have found the root cause, and we'll talk about that, or it may actually take that long. Now let's look at our first example before we go into the compass template and example. Now in this example, we have a very simple problem, and it's puddle of oil on the shop floor. And that's the point of recognition of our problem. So we've written that down. And immediately our thought process might be clean up the oil. That might be our immediate countermeasure, but that's not really finding out why. That's not getting to the root cause. So let's go through the whys. So we ask why. And we find by looking that the machine is leaking oil. We ask why again, and that would be because the gasket has deteriorated. Well, why has the gasket deteriorated? Next step would be because we bought gaskets made of inferior material. Aha. Okay. Now we can keep going to the whole way through the 5, and we would say, why does that occur? Well, because we got a good deal on those gaskets. Why did that happen? Because purchasing is evaluated on short-term cost savings. So what do you do with this? This is an interesting one, because at the 3rd why, where we said the gaskets were made of inferior material, our countermeasure would be change the gasket specifications. And that probably would suffice here. If we were to do that, that would prevent this machine from leaking oil in that same way. So it is, in a sense, the root cause. But we went further, and as we did that, if we look at the very bottom, change the evaluation policy for purchasing agents, that would affect systemically these other issues that may also occur, other gaskets and parts and things that we're buying purely based on short-term cost savings. So there is some decision making that needs to be made here. I mean, we may decide initially, let's immediately change those gasket specifications, and that does solve the problem, or we may want to go further as well. Now, what I want to do here is just explain a couple of key tips. One I've already mentioned, and that's answer the why question with an immediate cause. Why did something happen? Answer just the immediate why. Don't jump down the causal chain. Now, to check on this, my tip is to use therefore backwards. So we would start with the very bottom and say, the purchasing agent gets evaluated on short-term cost savings. Therefore, we got a good deal on the gaskets. Therefore, we bought gaskets made of inferior material. Therefore, the gasket has deteriorated. Therefore, the machine is leaking oil. Therefore, there is a puddle of oil on the shop floor. Okay, and logically that makes sense because this was done correctly. But if you find when you go through that therefore process, if it doesn't make sense, you need to go back and question what you're doing and make sure you really have answered why with the immediate cause. All right, now let's actually use the compass tool, and we'll take another problem, and that is that our medication cart is not working inside a room within our hospital. Okay, so we're going to open the Compass 5Y template. And when you do that, it looks like this. And as you can see, we have in there, what is the problem under investigation? So that's where you first write your problem. You've defined the problem correctly. You write it down. This one is very simple. The medication cart is not functioning. By the way, if we were to use our problem definition, this is not meeting a standard. The standard there is that it should be functioning, right? Okay, so we write down the problem, and next it asks us why. So you get this first, why is that occurring? We would write in there the reason. We've investigated, we've looked at it, and the batteries are dead. Why are the batteries dead? They should be charging. Well, we looked, and the outlet where the charger is plugged in is not functioning. Why not? Okay, we looked at that and we found that the outlet has gotten wet. Why has the outlet gotten wet? Water sprays on it from a sink nearby, which should not happen, but why is it happening? Well, the water pressure in the sink is too high. So again, we've got our root cause now, the water pressure being too high. Now let's revisit going backwards just to make sure this makes sense. The water pressure in the sink is too high. Therefore, water sprays on it from the sink nearby. Therefore, the outlet has gotten wet. Therefore, the outlet for the charger is not functioning. Therefore, the batteries are dead. Therefore, the medication cart is not functioning. Okay, and that again makes logical sense. And you can then write down your root cause in the box on the bottom and then identify potential countermeasures. Now, in this case, the countermeasure might be fairly obvious. We can just adjust that water pressure. So that's the process for the 5Y. Now, let's talk about Fishbone. And again, I'll come back to the 5Y later a little bit and how these can kind of work together. Now, what is the Fishbone, sometimes called Ishikawa diagram or even cause and effect diagram? This is a diagram that's used for identifying potential causes of a problem. It's not the only process that you're going to engage in to find the root cause, because when you do a Fishbone diagram, you're identifying the potential factors or causes, and then you're going to do some more work, which we'll talk about. Ultimately, we want to get to the root cause or causes, but the first step here in identifying potential causes could be had by using this Fishbone diagram. Okay, and later on, once you do some more analysis, that's where the 5Y may come right back in. Now, let's talk about the process for a Fishbone. Typically, we would write at the head of the fish the problem, the effect. Okay, that goes at the head of the fish, and I'll show you that in a little while. Then we have categories. Now, there are some standard categories that are typical, like materials, machines, methods, measurement, environment, and people, these can be changed depending on the kind of process. For example, if we're doing something that's more of a business process or administrative in nature, we might not have machines, we might not have materials, but we may have other things like information, software and systems, or something like that. So we can change these cause categories. And you can do that in the template as well, the template from Compass. So the next step, once we have the categories, is brainstorming. And it's brainstorming potential causes or factors for each category. So we brainstorm and write as many as we can within each category. And ultimately, as you're doing this, you're going to see that at some point you may have causes and some sub-causes that go in there as well. So some of the factors you're writing down may be related to other factors or other causes. Ultimately, once you've construct the fishbone diagram, you'll find some areas are bigger bones on the diagram where you have your major causes, and you may have some areas of the diagram that are more concentrated with causes. That may be where we want to focus as we go through this. Now, what happens at the next step? Once you've identified all the potential causes, as we'll see, we can use some other tools to get more data. Later, we'll talk about to get more precise here and narrow it down. One thing we can do, we'll talk about later, which is gather some data and do some Pareto analysis. We'll talk about that later. In the immediate term, as you're doing this, you may do some multi-voting. Normally, we would have a bunch of people in a room and we're doing this cause and effect diagram, maybe on a whiteboard or something on the wall. And we would have votes, and we would have each person get a certain number of votes, and that would help us narrow down which ones to focus on first, potentially for further analysis. In the Compass tool, I don't have an example of it in here. I am going to walk you through the Compass tool, but the Compass tool allows for voting. The person running it can allow and actually get votes from other team members, and you can do multi-voting in there. Okay, so we'll be sure to be aware of that if you are requesting the Fishbone tool, that it actually does have that functionality. Now let's look at the tool. When you open the Fishbone diagram tool from Compass, this is what you initially see. It's going to ask you for the problem, which is the question under analysis. And typically at the head of the fish, you're going to write down something like a why not question. In this case, we're saying why not meeting daily production planned output? So why are we not meeting that? Then you can write in your team members and either select blank template or guided process. If you select guided process, you could be working with your team and start brainstorming and actually filling it in. So we have here some different categories, and within each category, we can actually fill in the factors that we've come up with as a group. And if you need more, you can copy and paste and actually add additional categories. Next, once you've entered all of your potential causes, what's going to happen is it will actually create the fishbone for you. You can copy and paste that into things like an A3 diagram or a PowerPoint or whatever it is that you would like to use this on. In this case, we have the same problem I just mentioned. Why are we not meeting daily production output as planned? And we have some different factors or causes here, potential causes. Now, what do we do with this? That's what I was referring to earlier. We're going to take some of these causes and investigate them further to find out which ones are really the most important. And this is where you could also use the voting, as I mentioned, if you want, and do a little multi-voting. Another functionality that I'm not demonstrating here is a nested fishbone. You can actually have more sub-causes or a sub-fishbone to one of your factors. You can actually do that as well. Okay, but we're going to keep it simple as far as today's lesson. Now, example 2 is going to be a non-manufacturing example. This actually came from a health plan dealing with health insurance. And the question is, why are there errors in the data? This was a company that had particular problems with correction and finding errors late in the process. So they brainstormed some potential factors or causes that create these errors. And you could see they did not use the same categories, because that really didn't make sense. They have environment, they have program, they have people, policies and procedures, and systems. And within those, you can see some different examples, such as codes missing in the system under program, or wrong code used under people, things like that. Okay. So now with these kinds of fishbones, now how do we find out which of these causes is the most significant? Okay. Well, one way to do that is to use Pareto analysis. And it's a good follow-up to the fishbone. It's a very simple tool, and it's based on the 80-20 rule, okay, which is the idea of focusing on the vital few, or the 20% that affect 80% of our problem. So it can really help us in this case to find what the most significant causes are. All right, so how do we create a Pareto chart? Now, let me just mention that if you have Compass can create a Pareto chart for you. But the basics of a Pareto chart are, first of all, we need to understand what we're going to be measuring, what the process is. We need to know over what time period and frequency we're going to be collecting data, and we need to collect some data. Now, it may be automatically collected for us already, and we just need to go back and dig into it and pull it out, or we may need to go ahead and collect it. But what we're collecting typically for a Pareto chart in this case is going to be our potential causes and the number of times those actually were the case. So in this case, if we're not meeting our daily production and working overtime, we're going to find out how often different causes were responsible. So in this case, we have packaging machine down 154 times, test failure 45 times, out of material 22 times, and then other 20. And that could be onesie twosie things that we're probably not going to focus on. Now we can take that and create what's called a Pareto chart. Now that can be done in Compass. But this is just an Excel example, and it's basically looking at the same data we just saw on the previous page, where we have packaging machine down. That accounts for 64% of the cases, the times when we had to work overtime because we didn't meet our plan. Test failure, which is another 19%, making it 83%. Then we have out of material and our other. Now, in this case, we would focus on packaging machine down, and we would dig into that problem. Perhaps we would do a second level of Pareto to find out what the causes are. And then even with those causes, let's say there's a particular failure that happens in the packaging machine frequently, we can go back to our 5 why process and find the root cause. Why does this particular component fail on our packaging machine so often? And we can start digging into what the causes are. So these tools definitely are all related and all very useful. Now, what would happen next? Once we identify our root cause, then we get our team back focused on innovation, and we're going to be brainstorming what we would call solutions or countermeasures. And so we systematically decide on a solution or a set of solutions, and any good problem-solving process is going to have us test our solutions and then finally implement them full scale once we've validated that they work, and then put in place a control plan where we're monitoring and sustaining the solution that we have come up with. Okay. Now, let's just summarize with some key points. First of all, it's very critical to define the problem correctly first. That's really important. Without a proper problem definition, anything we do, a Fishbone, a 5Y, Pareto, any tool we use is really not going to be effective because we're not working on the right thing. So we need to define the problem correctly. Secondly, Fishbone diagram can be used early on to identify potential causes, potential factors that affect our problem. Pareto analysis as well as maybe even before that, some multi-voting where we can use the voting feature in Compass can help us narrow down. And then ultimately with the data from Pareto analysis, prioritize what are the top contributing factors or causes. And then the 5 why is used for identifying the root cause of a particular problem. So the key here is, as I mentioned, to make sure you're answering the question why with the immediate cause. The 5 why can work in combination with these, but what's important to realize is that the 5 why can't be used standalone on any level of problem, particularly strategic problems. You would not really use the 5 why, and I mentioned that earlier. It's really more of a tool for finding the root cause. And for these high level strategic problems, there isn't a single root cause typically. Okay. So these are just some takeaways, some summary thoughts that might be of help to you. Finally, we have some information here for you to consider. Training. If you have any interest in training, please contact us at the information you see below. We also encourage you to sign up for our next Tool of the Month Club, which is going to be on FMEA on March 17th at the same time, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. And we have our contact information. Feel free to contact us with questions, or if you want to have a demonstration of Compass itself, it would well be worth your time to see it. It's a very powerful program. And then please stand by for a 5-minute overview of the program, which may pique your interest. Thank you again, and have a wonderful day.
That's it. That's our program for today. We promise to keep them very short and sweet. In the next couple of seconds, you'll see a 5-minute overview of the Compass platform, which would give you access to 50 or more project management tools to help you to manage your improvement activity. Thanks again, everybody. Have a great rest of your day. Take care. Bye-bye.
Welcome to this brief demonstration of the award-winning Compass Quality Management System. Compass will literally put improvement on autopilot in your organization, completing more projects faster, and projects with greater returns. Your team will be given the tools, support, and direction necessary to drive your efforts at operational excellence and business transformation. In other words, no matter how you look at it, Compass pays for itself. No other comparable application contains as many features or as much value for the dollar. Let me show you some of the features of Compass that will support breakthrough improvement in your organization. Users can quickly add an idea to Compass by indicating the anticipated value to your organization and the specific business case. Our impact risk matrix will frame the business opportunity with little effort, while the system prioritizes the idea for comparison to others. From the very first screen, Compass improves employee engagement while creating a robust pipeline of opportunities. And by the way, most of the fields you see here are actually customizable. Leverage employee feedback in Compass by comparing perception to reality for improvement opportunities. Users can comment and rate ideas, while management compares workforce support to objective criteria. Your management and quality team can review the merits of each idea and resource those with greatest potential. Dynamic sorting helps you evaluate the range of opportunities more effectively than a static spreadsheet. In other words, Compass helps you to not only do things right, but to do the right things. It's no wonder Compass has been recognized as the #1 idea management system compared to over 75 other applications on G2Crowd.com. Management can send feedback to users from within Compass. Show your staff that you appreciate their initiative. Ask others for the information you need. You'll be promoting collaboration and establishing accountabilities up front while communicating your support. Once an idea is approved, Compass will help drive your project. This becomes the handoff within Compass from management to staff. Compass makes it easy to do the right thing by guiding the user through project work, providing tools and support, and a place for documentation. Need a little direction before performing a value stream analysis? Tell Compass to get me the tool, or even get me the training. Jump into the Lean online training available also from ASQ, now incorporated within Compass. This is a highly evolved program including professional audio, exercises, learning games, and case studies. At any time, send an updated A3 report to your team and stakeholders, and Compass will not only create the report, it will drop it into an email for you. Compass is compatible with PDCA, Lean, Six Sigma, ISO 9001, and any improvement method you use in your organization. Compass is a high performer for enterprise project management on G2 Crowd, and it's one of this year's top quality management systems according to CIO Review. Compass includes the entire body of knowledge for Lean to support staff new to improvement work, and it even integrates readily with SharePoint for your own intranet, enabling you to create a turnkey collaborative environment. Compass offers a highly flexible user-driven reporting portal. You can view reports in an A3 format or reports with a global view. Reports offer the ability to monitor all activity, progress against goals, and return on investment. Compass puts improvements on autopilot by automatically advising staff if their projects are ahead, behind, or missing data. Finally, we can't talk about Compass without showcasing our robust tools. Compass will literally interview each user and build a tool based on your specific needs, allowing you to create everything from a value stream analysis, Gantt or control chart, to computerized simulation. Compass can replace annual spending on dozens of disparate applications in many organizations. Bring order to chaos as Compass guides your team through the completion of projects, and management achieves true line of sight into all improvement activity in the organization. Finish more improvement projects, finish projects faster, and finish projects with stronger results, all within the guidance of your Compass. Compass.